Welcome to the Global Goals Studio. Our guest is Gayle Smith, the CEO of One, the global movement co-founded by the activist and, of course, legendary musician Bono. Gayle Smith, your organization was founded as a campaign to end extreme poverty and preventable disease by 2030, which is right in line with the SDGs. What do you see as the role of NGOs, non-governmental organizations such as yours, in pushing governments to do the right things on poverty and climate and all the other goals?
Well, I think it's really important for governments to understand that people actually care about these issues, and that conventional wisdom oftentimes among leaders is that these are not the kinds of issues that are going to get you votes and win popularity. I think we've seen over the years that that's not the case, that there are actually extraordinary coalitions, often very broad politically and otherwise, that do in fact support campaigns around ending poverty and preventable disease. And they come at it from different directions. But I think our role is to marshal that support and that interest, and then use it to deploy a sort of inside game where we engage directly with policymakers, and an outside game where we capture the public imagination to keep the pressure on.
And Ms. Gayle Smith, you have said before that the fight against poverty isn't so much about charity as much as it is about justice and equality. Can you expatiate on that a bit more?
Absolutely, and I believe that absolutely. And during the pandemic, I think we've seen this all over the world as it's ripped the covers off the gross inequities that exist in our communities and our countries, and frankly, between countries. And ending poverty is not about giving something to someone so that they have more. It's about ensuring that everybody's got access to education, access to the financial and other tools that mean somebody can start a business, access to their full legal rights, access to health care. It's all of those things, that equality that comes with everyone having access, that allows people to escape extreme poverty. And it's unjust that some people don't have that access. It's simply absolutely wrong. So we believe strongly, I believe passionately, that you've got to have that equality of access, and that it is absolutely a matter of justice.
Gayle, the One campaign has had great success in lobbying heads of state, government officials, lawmakers all around the world through all the years you've been around. Something we've heard a lot through this week, this Global Goals Week, at the SDG Action Zone, everywhere, including in the studio, is this question of, at this moment in time, with the pandemic, a global recession, are the governments doing enough? What are the most successful arguments that the One campaign and people like you can make to push governments to do more at a time when we all know they are tending to look inward?
The simple answer to whether they're doing enough is no. It's quite extraordinary if you think about it that we do not have an absolutely bold, loud, united international community going after this pandemic. And I think the arguments in pushing them to go there, one is facts and science. If we want to shorten the lifespan of this pandemic, we've got to fight it everywhere, because we know, we've seen the virus moves, we'll see reimportation all over the world if it isn't brought under control. So it's a fact, a scientific fact, that collaboration will yield results in terms of the pandemic and all the impacts. The second thing is that if we don't act now collectively, this is going to cost much more over the long term. Not just because economies have been shut down in many places and we've seen the immediate repercussions of job loss and other things, but look at the impact on hunger. Look at the impact on the fight against HIV and AIDS. Look at the impact across sectors of our failing to yet control this pandemic. So the second argument is an economic one. And the third one, which I usually start with, but doesn't always prove to be the one that makes the difference, is that it's just the right thing to do. People all over the world need their leaders to step up, join hands, and end this pandemic, because we know how to do it.
But there are so many NGOs trying to get involved and trying to reach the SDGs. How do you measure the success or failure of an NGO's efforts?
I've been on both sides of this, right? I'm leading an advocacy organization now. I was the object, target, subject of advocacy for many years when I served in government. And I'd say a few things about some of the things that work. Coalitions work really well. It gets policymakers and politicians' attention when you've got an assortment, when you've got NGOs, business, right, left, middle, faith groups, grassroots activists. Coalitions capture people's attention. The second is a really tight policy ask. If we just ask policymakers to do more, they'll say, yeah, sure. If we get specific and root those asks and demands in the context of the budget and other realities, we've got a better chance of getting them. And I think those are the kinds of things that can measure success. Do we persuade people and change their minds, and does that result in tangible outcomes in terms of resources or policies?
Sadly, we have to leave it there. Gayle Smith, the CEO of the Brilliant One campaign, thank you for your time today. Thank you for joining us.
It's great to be with both of you. Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
And coming up, a look at faith and gender and their influence on sustainable development. This is the Global Goals Studio.
This year, teachers are learning new ways to teach. Parents are learning to lesson plan. And young minds are learning a new normal. This year, we are all students. At Verizon, we're enabling the education that students deserve. With credentialed teacher training, free lesson plans for parents, and tech-enabled solutions for schools nationwide, it's Citizen Verizon in action, our plan for economic, environmental, and social advancement.